Welcome back to How to Quilt the Quilt. So today we have a fun table runner by Mary Ann that she provided for us. I will say I have quilts to do this with, but I haven't been able to get to them yet because I'm getting the table runners and they're much simpler, take a lot less time, so I can brainstorm more on them. So let's go take a look at this table runner, which is much more modern, and I think you might like some of the ideas. This is called BQ Double Time. BQ is the big quilts that they have done, but they have a table runner that they put out, and this is for table runners. And this is from Maple Island Quilts. So BQ Double Time from Maple Island Quilts. And you can see it's really quite beautiful. And Mary Ann chose some lovely combinations on this. I believe this is grunge because I believe I have this and have used it. So what would we do with this lovely quilt, and what are the dimensions? She gave me the dimensions on the pattern, but let me just show you on the quilt because it made more sense as I was trying to think through it. So this large section is 8 inches wide by 34 inches long. These outer open grunge areas are 5 inches wide by 23 inches long. And I would gather that's a finished dimension. This L shape here, L or 7, is 3 inches wide. The long section is 17 inches. This shorter one up to the seam here is 6 inches. All of the orange and the teal on the outer part is 2 inches wide. This teal, it looks like a teal or green, is 1 inch wide all around that inner floral section. So we look at this, and the first thing is I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. What can I do that's an all-over quilt? Remember, we have this large floral area. So if we do too much, it's going to be lost on it. So I'm going to go back to something that we have done before, which is what we often do when we do all over quilts. We are doing it on a sit down. We're limited on what all we can do with all over designs to some extent. Now we could add flowers and things all over this, but it might be too much with that inner floral section. So I don't want to do just hooks. I want to add something attractive to it that draws my attention. So I would add the leaves and do an all-over design with the leaves. But I would not recommend that. This would not be hard to do with some specific quilting. Now I'm sticking for the most part with free motion quilting itself, not a lot of ruler work, because it's very hard to demonstrate ruler work in a system like this. So if I show you ruler work, I'm making it pretty easy. Most of it's actual free motion quilting designs. Now let's go back and look at that quilt and look at the center of it. And the first thing I'll look at especially when I have a floral like this, is there any design that I can use in the pattern, in the floral print, to repeat in the quilting? This one has a fabulous, the flowers, I'm like, what in the world are those? However, keep your eye on this one. I'm not going to be able to, I don't even know what that is, but I came up with an idea. But what I really liked, and you'll know it, if you know me, you'll see it right now, is this right here. Great, fabulous design. We have it again. Well, we have it over by this flower again, but it also shows up in it came up, here's a little bit of it here. In some other areas, here's part of it here. So it's in the quilt several times, and I really like it very much. So when I look at this quilt, to actually quilt it, when we look at Quilt Designs, one I'm going to look at is that. So here's our layout. I've said this before, I believe, but when I'm looking at a heavily printed design, which this obviously is, I'm going to look at a grid of some sort that doesn't take a lot of work. you'll never see all my work. Not worth putting in. Before I even do that, on this type of a runner, there's not much piecing. So I would definitely stitch around all of the seams, start in the middle, start around that floral, do around this small green or teal pattern or design, and then go out from there around every ditch. Then you're done. Now, the thinking on this was, how do I utilize the open space? So I looked at that floral design that I showed you just here and came up with that here. And then I believe these are poppies, I think, that I've done before. Put those in the corner, just something else big. But you could repeat these if you wanted to. You could move 2 down and put another one here, and you can just fill this area with something like what we've got here. I repeated that in the opposite one. And just simple, but very nice. Now, if you wanted to quilt it to death, you could go around these and echo around anything you did here, anything that I showed you in the open spaces, and then do very small micro stippling or scribbling in between. That, if you did it with wool or double layers, that would really make that pop up. But because this is solid, you could use just a nice low loft or a wool if you wanted to, and do this, and it would be very lovely. Then the first thing I came up with was using the scroll design in here. I came up with it for a reason rather than others, which you'll see. Simple scroll that I showed you this past week. I just love scrolls. And then added in just a couple of leaves to take up that space. Then to get some more modern, went around the orange with the straight lines spaced 1/4 inch apart, and then straight lines 1/4 inch apart with pebbles in between. I really like this. If I were to quilt this, this would definitely be an option. I like it a lot. Remember that I'm sticking mostly with free motion. Other options would be to take the area where I put the pebbles at, and here I've just instead put in the wishbone shape. Now the other thing we did was, remember that big fat flower I told you about? Well, I don't know what it is, but the first thing that came to my mind, and I can't seem to get this to open up any wider, is a carnation. And again, I don't know what this is. I'm having troubles with my, there we go. There we go. I don't know what it is, but it looks like a carnation to me. So I looked up how to draw a carnation. And this is not as big as I would draw it. This is supposed to be 5 inches wide. And this is as wide as I could get it on this fabric. But I'll show you how I actually stitched it out and drew it, and so I could see what it would look like in 5 inches. And you can get it much more of the petals around it. So taking that in place of the scroll, and that brings out the big floppy flowers in that center area. I really like that also, very, very much. Another option is to, instead of a traditional feather, do what's called a fern feather, and that would make it more modern. Here you can see the more modern designs here, and they all don't have to be done the same way. And then if you recall the circles that we did on the Jelly Roll Race quilt, there I go getting stuck again. The circles that I did on the Jelly Roll Race quilt, you could do that in the corners, and I think it would be fabulous. So this is another option, definitely more modern. I would not do it only because I'm not that modern. Now, to show the real me, yes, I just doodled. Just wanted to doodle, see what I could come up with. So here's an idea of my absurdness, just playing around to see what I could come up with. And that just shows you that I'm real, and not everything I draw is going to look right the first time. drew the feathers just to draw them. But and I love feathers in most open spaces, but I don't think that they do anything for this. Added them, changed the scroll up and put it in the L shape. I like that in there, but the feathers just didn't do anything for it really. So I think I had one more thing. Yes, so the other option that I was showing was doing that flower shape that's in the center area, doing that in the L shapes, but doing something like diamonds. So I mentioned ruler work, doing diamonds in these open areas. And Quilter's Groove has a wonderful diamond shape. I can't think of Lisa's last name, but wonderful shape that will always work. I think this is more or right at 5 inches, but I can use an inside echo to make that smaller. So I could use that to do a shape within that, and that would, I think, be attractive in that area. I really like that. And that would combine a little bit more ruler work with the floral arrangement. So that's my idea on the quilting, and I want to really quickly show you that flower. This is not how I saw to draw it on, I think I researched a couple of places. One was YouTube, but I had to modify it so that it could be quilted. So the first thing I did was I need to go get something darker. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go with black, although don't do this in black. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit of a curve just with little squiggles to the shape that you want. Then I'm going to squiggle back a little bit. Don't line them up exactly, and I'm going to do one more row. And that's that middle area. And the way I actually learned it was to do M's, but I can't do that when I'm quilting. Then I'm going to come up and do about 3 M's again and come in, or 3 little humps. And this is not a big shape. And I'm going to go all the way around this area. And they don't have to be uniform, at least not for what we're doing it with quilting. And then I'm going to get it a little bit bigger and still do 3 or 4, whatever you want. Really, it doesn't have to be. You can just see I'm doing some humps and I'm just coming back in, and then here's where I started. And then I'm going to go ahead and I might stitch over to this one, and then I can even get them bigger, and I can do however large I want to fill the area that I'm filling or that I want to fill. Okay, we'll stick it with that. Now, let me see if this won't turn around. I didn't do it on the long side, which is probably what I should have done, but I'm going to show here then. I would get to where I was at the bottom. I think I stopped here, but I'll just do it here. I'm going to come down a little bit, curve, and then just do a little figure. I don't know what you want to call that. Curve around and go back up. So that's the bulb of where that flower came from. And then I can go trace my way back and then come down. Now let me show you the petals. They're way too high up. Okay, I didn't make this long enough, but you got the idea. I can come over and do a curve that flounces down. Then back up and bring it down a little bit. I can do it on the other side. And you can vary these shapes. And there's our flower. And we can lay it on our side. So I'll show you the picture of this. Now I actually laid out 5 inches, and I'm going to have to turn my light on. So I actually measured 5 inches, and it's to this, not this one. And so that I could see how big I could get this. You can get it very big, and it's lovely. This is just done in purple so that you could see it. And I didn't end up even here. That's okay. You go up as high as to reach the petal. and then I made it long so you could see you could fit more than a couple of petals in there. So this is the shape that you get, and at the very tail of this, right after I'm done here, I will include the video that I did on stitching this out for you as well. That's what I have for you today. I hope to have my post done on Wednesday for the border of the Jelly Roll Race quilt. If I don't post, it's because I'm running behind, and I'll post it as soon as I can, definitely before the next Wednesday. So I will get that out. I hope you've enjoyed How to Quilt the Quilt. Have a super week. Give me some feedback. You can subscribe or like my post. If you don't like it, let me know why. And I'll see you as soon as I post, as soon as I finish the Jelly Roll Race quilt border. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to add in, I mistakenly deleted the video that I did when I stitched this, so I do not have this on video. I apologize. If you want it and would like it and would find it helpful, let me know, and I will stitch this out again and post that. Thanks.